I'm full of cold as well. I don't know if you've noticed. So I've
Oh, fun.
got all my drugs, got my vitamin C, got my tissues.
Mm.
I'll adjust the sound later to make me sound more clear. Right.
Non, c'est ce que je disais. Oui, ouais, s'évader, c'est de la blague. Après tout dépend. Il n'y a qu'à s'intéresser aux choses et les trouver belles.
This and some of the other nice things that have happened to me in the last couple of days may turn me into some sort of hopeful optimist and ruin my whole life.
I'm interested in the way we tell stories about our lives, about the fact that the truth about the past is often ephemeral and difficult to pin down.
You've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Mi nombre es Ofelia. ¿Quién eres tú?
Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there.
What? This old thing? Well, I only wear it when I don't care how I look.
Al film italiano Deserto Rosso di Michelangelo.
Is there anything you want to talk about? I'll just listen, all right? I'm a real good listener.
Welcome to the Filmotomy podcast. This is number 106. As I said in the last one, I've been a bit lackadaisical, should we say, for about 3 years. I think we did 105 last week. We did 104 in October, and before that, it was me and Doug. We were talking about, I think it was our dear friend Jonathan, possibly, who passed away, and that was after COVID. So we're going back a bit. And today I'm joined by what I like to call the best awards editor in the business. Completely biased, but completely objective at the same time. Doug, it is absolutely amazing to talk to you again about our favourite things, film politics. I mean, Oscars and the award season.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been a long time.
It has, it has. And I always wanted to do this. We used to do it every week, didn't we? And we had a couple of other regulars that I'm not going to mention any certain person's name. She went off into a different place. It was a bit like an Anakin Skywalker kind of scenario, but you stay grounded the whole time. And just about Filmotomy, really. I used to do what you do on the site, and then I had a guy called Matt Sinclair. He did it a couple of years for me, and he was terrific, which we all know Matt. And then you decided, please can I be the awards editor, and I'll do it. And I don't think it was quite like that, but can I just start by asking you how, and I ask you this every year, and I thank you every year, how do you do it? Because it gets to Cannes now, it starts at Cannes, we go through, it
Yeah.
gets to the festival season, I think September, where October, then suddenly it's just constant critics groups until now. I mean, it's a long season, this one. We're nearly middle of
Yeah.
March. How do you do it? And what keeps that passion alive for you personally?
I think all awards editors and awards writers, it just comes from that odd passion for awards season, which for me started as a kid. Like something about the Oscars drew me in as a kid, and then getting older, sort of understanding, it's not just the Oscars. There's this whole plethora of awards that lead into it, which has become even more so in recent years. But it was then trying to understand, okay, well, how do we get to Oscar night? Like, what kind of determines who's nominated, who's winning, and that kind of thing. And I think the sort of advent of the internet in the early 2000s and people starting awards websites, including that one person that has taken a bit of a detour with her writing of recent years, but that was certainly my entry point into, okay, there are other people out there who love awards as much as I do, and feeling less alone with things like Twitter, as much as a hellscape as it can be. It certainly, in the earlier days of Twitter, certainly brought people together. Awards Twitter became a thing, and seeing other people, and then wanting to get into writing about it and covering it, and probably admittedly not realizing how much work that really is, and how many award shows you do have to cover. I mean, you've got to get the full picture, you have to cover everything, and in that sort of critics awards corridor, there are sometimes 2 or 3 a day, sometimes 5 or 6, up to 10 a week. But the interesting thing is always watching the earlier ones and how they sometimes do their own thing, because they're kind of leading the way. They're not being influenced by all these other nominations and other awards, and you do tend to get earlier awards with some things that probably don't end up being nominated later in the season. And then those critics groups that do go later maybe follow the trends a bit more and follow the sort of expected path. So it's always fun to kind of watch the difference between the start of the season and what's being nominated and what sort of then becomes the presumed front runners and that kind of stuff. So you just have to love it. That's really what you have to do. And I think it's obvious to all these awards writers and editors out there, that's really what keeps them going during this period.
We need to get you an assistant there. And I say this every year, we need to get somewhere. Because bear in mind, for those that don't know, you're in Australia, which is 12 hours, I think, from the UK and a little bit differently to the US. But so it's like publishing it and scheduling it and being like, maybe not the first, but being relevant because it's so quick.
Yeah. It depends because, I mean, if an award show takes place in the nighttime in the US, it's sort of like middle of the day for me, so that's not too bad. But then sometimes these critics groups are announcing at 3 a.m. my time, and with some of them, the big ones, I'll certainly wake up because I want to watch them, like the SAG nominations or things like that are in the middle of the night for me. So I don't mind doing it because it's like I probably couldn't sleep anyway because I know I'm going to miss out on it. So I'd rather wake up and watch it and then try and go back to sleep.
I mean, we'll start at Cannes, I think, because now Cannes is the starting point. And you know what? It didn't used to. It didn't used to be. And let me go back to the person that we're not going to name, but I respect that she created a platform, and all these people out there that don't really get on with her now have worked with her, or I've worked on the site as myself a few years ago. She created something, and it's arguable. We're not going to get into it. Her personality and her views, and her lack of filter has, she's lost a lot of friends, but she did start something big, and I was younger then, obviously, teenager in the 90s, and I remember having a GeoCities, I think it was a Yahoo thing when the internet first came out, and I was doing Oscar predictions, and she put my site on hers, on the list of links, and that was a start for me. So I'm not saying I owe her anything, but she opened a door, I think, and she's opened many doors sadly since. But I'll give her some credit that a lot of people maybe wouldn't be here without her, but I certainly think she started. But somebody would have done, wouldn't they? The internet. There's a lot of people out there, the Eric Andersons, the Claytons, that have been doing it the same amount of time, and they've gone the wrong way.
I think for some reason there's a bit of a bitterness in that of like, well, I was sort of the first, and absolutely you can make claim to being the first, but that doesn't mean that other people aren't entitled to do it too and do it just as well, do it better, do it differently, do it in different ways. And if I was the one that sort of started a whole movement, I guess I would be happy to see other people taking that on. But for some reason there seems to be that like, but I was the first and I should be the only, and that I understand that rubs people the wrong way. So as much as I also sort of credit her with getting me into it and realizing that, this is something that people do. People can write about this, and that it's not silly and it's not embarrassing. Like, it's just something you're passionate about. So as complicated as a relationship people have with her now, I think there were still some great elements early on for sure.
Before I get to the season as well, a question I always ask, and sometimes I'll write a piece, I'll write like an editorial once a year about something. Like I wrote about Coda a few years ago, why it was going to win, and I just write one thing a year. I should write more, but I always say about, I feel like the Oscar predictions thing, everybody from, awards expert, which is a massive now, him and Brother Bro, yourself, constantly just typing and doing like written journalism. There's millions of us. Do you think now we're encouraging? Is this an obvious question? Are we helping or swaying votes now? Are we predicting, or are we making? Are we part of the publicity that's the Oscar voters? We know they visit the sites. If they're stuck or they're swayed by us, are we now dictating to a large extent the final winners? Is it predictions, or are we saying? Are we guiding?
I think collectively we are part of it. I think there's anyone that says like one person can sway a race or something is pig-headed. Like that's impossible.
Yeah.
I don't think, because you have to reach thousands of voters to convince them of something. But I think particularly those voters who maybe aren't so entrenched in everything, they are looking at you've heard people reference Gold Derby in red carpet interviews, and they do interviews with these sites now. Like they know that that's a part of the whole campaign process, is being across these websites so that your name is constantly being mentioned, because if you're not being talked about, it's not going to happen. And that's certainly what's happened this season, is some of those films which seemed like no-brainers for a whole plethora of nominations, I guess people like myself and others just weren't talking about those films as part of the conversation. And I think ultimately that kills your momentum. I don't think we can sort of determine the winners. I think those are still very, very personal picks. But I certainly think coming up with those nominations, it's a tough process for people who aren't so part of the industry and aware of what's going on. So resources like what we do and what so many other people do, I mean, it's obvious that they're turning to that now. I don't like to say it's swaying the race a certain way, but it's certainly informing them. That's for sure.
Yeah. It'll never be swayed. You're right, and it's a bit like on a much lesser and a more annoying scale is those anonymous ballots, which I never like. I certainly would never.
No.
If you came to me and said, "Can we post about it?" I would probably say, "No, Doug, please."
No.
It's just a silly. But you mentioned it earlier. This last couple of weeks before, when all the televised awards are finished, it does start getting a bit silly, and we've not really had any mudslung this year. In fact, this year's probably been. I mentioned it on the podcast within session. It's been very much a community based. Everyone's sort of friends. I know there's been a lot of politics avoidance with questions and stuff which we'll come to with certain films, but I do think that whole community. I mean, Warner Brothers are probably just sat there going, "This is brilliant because we're going to get at least 10 Oscars no matter what. It doesn't matter." The two best films, I'll do in quotation because they're not everybody's number one, but there's not many haters out there. And I like to look at it like that. What a brilliant year. Obviously, we're talking about Sinners and one battle after another. You must be sick to death of writing those films down in those titles of films. Sinners wins, one battle wins.
Yeah.
You must be tired of it. It must be like a.
Yeah. It was also trying to come up with a different still for each article especially when one battle would win like 2 or 3 in a day. I'm like, I can't just keep using the same photo of Leonardo outside the car. Like I need to use something different. Okay, what else is out there? So it has been a weird season that the two films have just totally dominated, which is a bit more exciting than say like the Oppenheimer year where it just kept winning. Like it was very rarely that anything other than Oppenheimer won that year. So it was, at least there's been a little bit of a variety, but I think majority of people either there hasn't been a huge amount of hate for either of these two films. Sinners certainly has its detractors, and One Battle certainly does, but like collectively I think the community has gone, hey, no matter what wins this year, we all win. It's been a really great season that hasn't had that mudslinging or negative articles or people trying to bring other things down. Twitter always has those people, and they're not the loudest voices in the room this season, which is really nice. That it just seems a lot more positive. And I think at the end of this season, in 1 week, it's kind of like, okay, we did well. Like everything that's won is there's no Amelia Perez this year. There's nothing that people really end up like just reviling like that. So, which has been a very, very nice change.
Yeah, there's no Green Book as well.
No.
I know we've talked about that enough that we that's probably why we stopped podcasting, because we can't talk about films anymore. Amelia Perez, I mean, if we'd done this podcast last year, I think this would be a very different tone. But we're not going to get into that. I think we'll talk about the tide changing, not just the internet, but it starts with Cannes. I'm a big fan of Cannes, and I can't think when this started, but it's certainly Parasite helped. Where the film, it's been a long time since a Palme d'Or winner won, or it was even a contender, but now we're getting 1, 2, possibly 3. Going back to Cannes in May, it's a long time ago. When you look at those films, you probably didn't see them until Sydney or later on, perhaps in the season, but what's your opinion of Cannes? And do you look there first when the season starts and think, right, there's going to be 4 or 5 here that are going to have legs?
Yeah, I think you're right. In previous years, the Palme d'Or basically meant very little for the Oscar race. It's almost like an outlier. Like it's great, and it was great for the filmmaker, and it was always something you're like, oh, I should definitely check that out when it went, especially if you're in those territories where it may not come out for 5-6 months after the actual Cannes ceremony. But in definitely the last few years, it's like now it is a boosting point to start an Oscar campaign, and obviously it worked incredibly well for Anora. It worked for Parasite, and that's why I think when it was just an accident one, it was like, okay, this is the first big international contender. It as you said, it played at the Sydney Film Festival just a few weeks later. It won the Sydney Film Prize, which is our top prize as well. Jafar Panahi was here for it. He got a standing ovation. Like, it was a whole thing. So I thought, okay, this is going to be the one that's probably this year's best international feature contender. It will be nominated for Best Picture. Potentially Panahi will be nominated for director, screenplay. You know, it would be this year's Emilia Perez as a terrible example of that, but this year's international film. So yeah, but you know, like this year's international film with the biggest tally overall, and so what's ended up happening with that is baffling to me, because I can't kind of explain it, because it followed the same trajectory as other Palme d'Or winners, and I think the last 4 to 5 years has shown that this can be a launching pad into the Oscar season, but it just didn't happen this year for some reason.
Yeah, there's a couple of threads. We'll come to Sean Penny's another interesting thread, sort of Oscar's character arc, literally. But with just an accident, we'll go back to Canada. There was Neon, obviously, but there was 4 or 5. Yeah. There's a film I'm sure you're going to mention from South Korea at some point, which also vanished off the earth. It was weird to see that Palme d'Or winner. And I think just to touch on the Cannes thing, I think the changing of the voters, younger, more international, has certainly helped. You know, Pavlikovsky getting in for Cold War would never have happened. Yeah. Even Lanthimos for The Favourite that year as well. Yeah. A lot of them weren't predicted it because they didn't get the DGA, but even though it was an English language film. But now it's like, if there's not one international director in the lineup, there's something wrong, isn't there? I don't know what happened to this film. The Palme d'Or, and you're right, it was, everybody was going, well, that's maybe a contender for best film to win, maybe, but it was getting in. It was getting screenplay. The director's well loved. I mean, he gets arrested so he can make these films. This guy's a legend, and he's a little bit overdue as well, you would argue. Yeah, with some of the films, but Sentimental Value, Secret Agent had the legs. Is there just not room for these international films, or is it with the other two? I mean, those two in particular, where they're just so strong. I mean, obviously, Sirat's done very well, and
I think when it came down to it, Sentimental Value is probably a little bit more accessible. I hate using that word because you know, but there are still those people that have issues with getting into international films, and it's not just because Sentimental has some English language in it, which obviously makes it a little more easier because it's not fully subtitled, it's not fully foreign language, but there was just something about, you know, a film about actors and the arts and that kind of stuff. It just felt like an easier sort of through line for a lot of people to get into that love movies and love acting and that kind of stuff. And The Secret Agent, I think, has that push from the Brazilian crowd behind it, similar to last year with I'm Still Here, that you kept hearing about this film, that these passionate Brazilian fans just pushed I'm Still Here to the forefront. It really pushed Fernanda Torres into the Best Actress race. And the exact same thing happened here with Secret Agent and Wagner Moura, that they just got behind it to the point that it couldn't be ignored. And I mean, it is a brilliant film. And this year's international lineup is incredible. That's the problem, is there are actually too many contenders, and Neon, as you said, happened to be handling all of them. And you can't possibly make proper campaigns for each film when one studio is basically responsible for all of them. So it's interesting. Like, you know, Cannes ultimately had, I think, all 4 of the 5 nominees for Best International Film. The only one wasn't The Voice of Hein Rajab. So it still is a great launching pad, I think, for Best International Feature. Whether they can then break into the other races it's still probably only 1 or 2 of those films it's going to happen to. It can't be more than that.
Yeah, it's a shame. It was an accident. It's one of my favourites.
Mm.
terrific, yeah, and it just hasn't translated. And almost when it got the screenplay, I was still a little bit surprised because I thought they might shut it out altogether. I think the international film was kind of a given. If it hadn't got one in the
Mm.
five, but it did feel like a consolation at that point that we'll include
Yeah,
it. And arguably
yeah.
it's the number five now, arguably, but it's a real shame. I won't talk predictions because I know you posted them at the moment and we'll wait,
Mm.
but I looked on your international feature, which is possibly my always my favourite one, and you've put it's a spoiler, but it's on the site. Sentimental value to win, should win. Possible spoiler, voice of Henry Jarb, which and I was like, I love this guy. That's my film of the year. And do you know what? It's funny that I don't think I've ever seen anyone pick a surprise that's their five. But just touching on that film, can that win? I mean, there's the politics avoidance thing I keep talking about, which people don't want to talk about the war, so maybe they
Mm.
don't want to vote for it. But voting is a quiet, private thing. You can do that without having to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
And that
It's a
film is
strange thing because
celebs all over it. There's people screening it from even
yeah,
sports people,
yeah,
film people. What are your opinions on
and
that?
yet
Possibly spoiling.
and yet like sentimental value doesn't have that. I mean, it definitely got a huge tally of nominations and it got great reviews, and obviously Stellan won the Golden Globe, and it dominated the European Film Awards. But I think in terms of overall buzz, like the fact that no one is talking about the two women in supporting actress, like they're not giving either of them a chance to win. I think that it just doesn't have that passion behind it, which is weird because you would think something that gets such a big tally of nominations overall would have that. And The Secret Agent definitely does. And I mean, there's a chance that the two of those split votes, that people
Yeah.
don't quite know which one to vote for, and then Voice comes through as a surprise. The content, the topics in it are very pertinent. It's an incredibly powerful film for those that actually do sit down to watch it, which this year they're certainly trying to force people before they vote to prove that they've watched these things. So I think in previous years you may have said, well, they only watch one or two of the five nominees, and so they don't all have an equal chance. But this year, if they actually do watch The Voice of Hind Rajab, that it could be so overwhelming that they are compelled to vote for it. So as much as, yeah, you're right, having it in my fifth spot just because it's such a strong lineup, and because it hasn't won anything else. Surat has those other nominations, so does Secret Agent. It's the only one in the lineup that it's the solo nominee. So that's my only point of putting it number five. But I honestly think they're all still in with the chance to win. This season feels too predictable, and that's always kind of concerning that everyone feels very, very safe in a lot of these categories with their predictions. And that's when you end up getting these surprises, and this could absolutely be one of them.
Yeah, it does feel like that one is the anomaly, but it feels like a lot of the techs are sewn up. I still think there's going to be some surprises in tech. I think
Yeah.
something like Autumn winning cinematography might not be a surprise. Probably it might not even coattail it. It might be the one that was going to win all along. And I don't think that would be a surprise anyway. I think if Sirat won sound, that would be a surprise. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Frankenstein not winning those three.
Mm.
Yeah, just on the costume and sets this year, I have a real problem with the categories because I just think the nominees have provided no competition. I mean,
No.
there's so many films
No.
with great costumes and sets that were just completely ignored.
Mm.
Art direction for One Battle was a very strange one. I love the film, but it didn't need to be in that category. Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you thought the same when you saw it on that morning. But yeah, I mean, we'll come to our films that missed. We'll talk about. I've got five things I'd like to touch on, five films that didn't make it. But I mean, Phoenician Scheme, Mastermind. I mean, Josh O'Connor's had an amazing couple of years, by the way. Jay Kelly, that was 10 years ago, that would have got in easily, wouldn't it? Because it's very Oscar baity.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
But a lot
Rental
of films just
Family would have done the
disappeared.
same.
Rental Family, yeah. Just before we come to our picks, I suppose, there's a couple of other things. The Hamnet Jane has been very interesting because I think, I'm not even sure if it's number three anymore, but I think without the two heavyweights, that might have been the easy go-to. But it missed
Yeah.
so many on nominations this morning, didn't it? Paul, cinematography, editing.
Editing.
Did
Yeah.
it, did it got score, I think. I can't remember. I'm sure it did. But
Yeah.
it missed a lot, so it was dead,
Yeah.
really, sadly. And then you've got Weapons, a film which just had legs and just kept going. And I watched the speech again from Amy at the SAG this morning, and it's just a speech where you think the voters are going to take. If they haven't voted yet, they'll want her to win. And obviously Ed Harris is
I,
a husband. But what do you think of that journey of weapons? Did you think that was going to die off?
I remember early in the season, it was like, oh, this Amy Madigan nomination is such a long shot. Like, it will never happen, especially with the history with horror films and the Academy. You know, there's been so many great horror performances that just end up getting ignored by them. But it just, and I think this is, as back to our earlier point of writers and stuff helping push the season, that certainly helped her, is that we just would not stop talking about it, that we all wanted it to happen. So many of us wanted it to happen. Yeah. It was my first thought after seeing Weapons of like, this is that kind of, okay, she's only on screen for like 15 minutes, but she just completely steals this film. She owns it. Every second she's on screen is incredible. It's the kind of villain that you will remember forever. It's iconic to the point that, you know, they're now talking about making a prequel because she's so popular, and that so rarely happens. And for it to happen to someone who is a veteran, but probably someone a lot of people don't know, they've probably seen her in a million things but don't really pay attention to her, or she's never had that kind of role that you really grabs your attention, but always consistently great. And so to see her ride that through this whole season, and now most people are predicting her, you know, she certainly has emerged as the front runner in a very, very messy category that could still go one of three ways. I still think it's an even chance for Teyana and for Wunmi as well. But just the fact that she's here, just the fact that she's nominated, just the fact that she won the SAG and the Critics' Choice, and she dominated the Critics' season as well, is incredible. I love it. I'm so happy for her, and I hope it just leads to more great things, which is kind of the hope of award season, is that it gives attention to someone and really then sort of propels their career into a different space.
It's perfect time. I mean, if she wins, I'll say it's perfect timing. But it's the horror genre just recently, and like Hereditary helped, and other films helped with this. But the horror genre now and all its subgenres is just thriving now, and all these horror fans are probably having their best life, living their best life now. And then you've got the Academy is changing as well. And Demi Moore was probably so close last year, which is the closest comparison I think to Amy winning this year. Similar, the longevity narrative, but also the horror narrative. I'd love to see her win, but I think any of the five win. I think it's such a strange year, Doug. I mean, the supporting actor category is not much better, is it?
No. It makes predicting very hard. I mean, as much as a lot of people complain in an Oppenheimer year where everything is set in stone from the start of the season, and even last year, those other than Best Actress, the other three acting categories were set. There was a little conjecture with Adrian Brody, especially after Timothy won SAG, but really that was just a blip, and those three categories were locked. Whereas this year, these two supporting categories are all over the place, and Best Actor as well, which we thought was pretty set for Charlemagne, particularly after he lost last year. It was like, okay, he's coming back next year with Mighty Supreme. This is going to be his year, but his campaigning has been the most tragic I've seen in a very long time. I think he's come across incredibly unlikable, and that doesn't help in this situation. As much as it should be about the performance, it's not. And I would think he's been around long enough, and he's been nominated before, that he should know that that's part of it, is winning people over. And I'm not surprised now that it certainly looks more likely to go to Michael B. Jordan, because he is so, who doesn't like Michael B. Jordan? He's so charismatic. He's so charming. He's playing two characters in one film. Michael, I don't know why this wasn't the front runner from the beginning, but I think a lot of people thought it was Timothy's time, but now I'm not so sure. I have no idea.
Timothy's gonna have to fight a bear, and then kill Tom Hardy at the end. That's the only way he's gonna win.
It reminds me of Russell Crowe in, was it 2001 or 2002? I mean, he seemed a certainty to win for A Beautiful Mind, particularly when it became the front runner for Best Picture. We thought he was going back to back after winning for Gladiator, the first person to do that since Tom Hanks. And then he threw a phone at someone, or he threw someone up against a wall, or whatever happened after the BAFTAs. It really turned people again. Whereas when the Gladiator year, he was king of Hollywood. Everyone loved Russell Crowe. He was so nice. He was so charming. And then just the following season, I think it a little bit went to his head, and he became a little bit of a bit of a snob. And Denzel was just waiting there as the alternative. And the irony that this time it's Michael B. Jordan, who obviously a lot of people see parallels between Denzel and Michael, that this exact same thing is happening, that something happens that sort of turns you. And just last week, Timothy's putting his foot in mouth by saying that opera and ballet are dead art forms, or whatever he said. It's like, are you actively trying to lose? Are you actively trying to get people to not vote for you? I can't fathom it in this day and age. But especially for someone who does appear like they would really love to win an Academy Award. Like, fair enough if this was Sean Penn doing this, he doesn't want to win. He doesn't care if he wins. But Timothy has seemed like someone who really wants to win an Oscar. So I just can't understand this campaign of his. It's been very, very strange to watch.
Yeah, but that interview, in context, like, everyone's put that clip, but in context, it's not as bad. But it does say when he said that, it does say, like, so I can't remember what he says, but he basically says, I'm going to lose points for saying that. He was aware that straight away that you have got to be careful what you say, and certainly not throwing phones at people at the BAFTAs, like you said. And yeah. Whereas Michael B. Jordan, Mr. Gentleman, and playing two roles. And do you know what? I watched a clip. What made me switch to him a few weeks ago? I'm no expert, but I watched the clip where they won't let, I can't remember his name, but they won't let him back in, and she questions him and says, why didn't he invite it in? And his non-verbal acting, Michael B. Jordan, in that film where he figures it out. And I just watched it. I thought, I knew he was good. I knew he was good in this. I knew he was good in Fruitvale Station. I thought, why they must be picking up on this. They must be watching Sinners again and going, fucking hell, he's really good. Twice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he has been for a long. He's been sort of on the cusp of Oscar nominations a couple of times, and this. Yes. I think people discounted this early on because we know what they do with horror performances is that they so often dismiss them. And I honestly thought this may be another one. I think we always knew that Sinners would be in the conversation, even though it came out all the way back in April. It's sort of Warner Brothers had kept it in conversation all year, but I kind of thought, well, when it comes to Michael B. Jordan, a nomination would be his prize because it's such a rarity to be nominated for a horror film. So I thought that would be the end of the road. But looking back on it, it's like, no, of course he could win. Like, and any of them could this year. I still think there's a chance that Wagner Moura could win as well. Like, he's going to have a big amount of votes from international voters, particularly people are looking for an alternative for Timothy that just don't particularly warm to him personally. Wagner is just as charming and handsome and brilliant in the film as well. So it's like there are two very obvious alternatives if you don't particularly like Timothée Chalamet.
We're not going to know as well, are we? We're not going to know. Best Actor's going to be quite late, but even if Sinners has got 6 at that point, we're still not going to know, are we? If it doesn't win the supporting categories, which I don't think. I don't know. I keep saying I don't think even the supporting are going to win, but Delroy Lindo, do you know what? You just never know.
Never know.
It's just everywhere, isn't he? He's like, I'll accept this speech. I'll accept this award.
Yeah.
And even sitting at the SAG, he said, my cast. And I thought, he's literally like stealing Coogler's thunder. But yes, I don't know. We're not going to know. Even if Taylor wins, we're not going to know if that's going to win Best Picture. It's going to be a really great evening. I really can't wait. I mean, before we get to our snubs and things, our personal, I've got some personal choices. What have been your highlights of the season? I mean, on top of your head, like when you've obviously published these articles and you're following these races, have you gone, oh, this was a pleasure to report on? What's been your highlights of the season so far, whether it's films or events or things that have happened?
I think, as I said, like seeing two films from the same studio, which are so wildly different to each other, do so well that, like, I mean, I suppose it helps that I personally loved both of these films. Like, to see both of them, it is very rare that one studio can handle two frontrunners. Like, I honestly, certainly in the time that I've been covering the last 5 years and just watching the Oscars, it's always like, well, they have to pick one. They have to pick one or the other. You can't
And they
push
usually
both
do
and
as well,
have
don't
them.
they? They usually we
Yeah,
see a film
yeah.
that flies away because they're focused on this one.
Exactly, which is what I think happened with Neon and with A24. I mean, people have said that with A24 as they focused too heavily on Timothy, that Rose Byrne suffered because of it. And that Neon focused too heavily on sentimental value, which means that it was just an accident suffered. But Warner Brothers has proven you can have both, and obviously they are a bigger studio than some of these independent ones, and they have a huge amount of money, and they're just about to be bought by Paramount and all that kind of stuff. But you still have to have the people to know how to navigate award season and know what screenings to do and what events to go to and what Q&As to hold and all that kind of stuff. The fact that they've managed to successfully run it for 2 films, and we get down to Oscar night where both of them are still absolutely in the running for Best Picture is an absolute miracle, because we never ever see that. We always say, oh well, they can only pick one, they can only get one in. You can get multiple nominees, but only one of them can really be your focus and your front runner. So that's been a really interesting thing to see, because I think at the start of the season everyone was like, well, they're going to have to choose one to go after, they can't possibly push both, and they've kind of proven that wrong completely, which is really, really interesting. And in future years now, where a studio does have 2 really, really solid films that can get 10 plus nominations each, they don't have to make these decisions anymore. They don't have to put all their resources into one film. They've proven that you can still have 2 and get to the end of the season as the first and second films with the total number of nominations. That's crazy.
16 was crazy. I mean, it's just crazy how it beat it by 2, the record. That's going to take a long time to. That's going to take a long time to beat. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of films that I'm going to mention just for reasons why they didn't make it into the award season. I'm sure you've got. I mean, there's several obvious ones. A certain musical sequel, which even Avatar got into costumes, which said how much they hated this film. I mean, what are some of your biggest snubs? Not even snubs, like where were they? What happened to them? And films you wished had shown up at least somewhere.
That was the biggest surprise. On I think everyone knew that Wicked for Good, the reviews weren't as strong. It isn't as good a film as the first one. No one is denying that, and I think that was almost predestined, because anyone who's seen the stage version will attest that the Act 2 is definitely not as strong as Act 1. When you finish Act 1 with Defying Gravity, like, where do you go from there? It's sort of always going to be down from there. Whether that means that they should have just done it as one film, everyone will argue that for the rest of time, that they could have just cut some things and maybe made it a 3.5 hour epic. Maybe it would have been better. Maybe it would have won a whole bunch of stuff last year if they knew that there wasn't a second film coming. Maybe Ariana would have won. I certainly would have preferred her to win over Zoe Saldana, for example. But I think to still not see its technical achievements be ignored was particularly baffling for me. I think you can say everything you want about the film's quality overall. You couldn't deny that on a technical level, it was still as solid as the first film, which gets 10 nominations and 2 wins.
Yeah.
I will never understand that. The only thing my theory was that they just didn't like this whole, here's a second part just 12 months later. They just rejected it. They went, we've already acknowledged this 12 months ago. It's basically the same costumes. It's basically the same sets and production design, same visual effects, same music, which is no. I mean, there is definitely a shift in tone in the sequel. It is darker. The costuming is different, but I think for Academy voters, it was like, we did this last year. We're not doing this again. We've already acknowledged it once. You can't ask us to do it again 12 months later. And I think that was Universal's biggest mistake. I still thought it would at least get at least 2 or 3 nominations. To see it get 0 was just a huge shock.
A lot of films as well, even the 2 big guns, I'm going to say we're a little bit over-nominated. So was Mighty Supreme, so was others. Maybe Hamlet under-nominated, but the others were over-nominated because it didn't show the breadth of cinema this year. A lot of these films we're going to talk about that missed out, like After the Hunt and Bruce Springsteen film where it didn't really deserve to be there, but some films did, and like for Avatar to get in for costumes, just you're having a laugh.
Well, even something like Marty Supreme getting costumes over
Yeah,
Wicked was like
exactly.
it's just okay. It's period pieces. They are vintage pieces, and there is obviously a lot of skill that goes into that. But really, Timothy's wearing suits and business shirts and things. There's nothing
Yeah,
particularly dazzling in that. And then you've got Wicked, where and I think that's the problem is that they just said, well, Paul Tazwell won 12 months ago. Why would we nominate him again? For basically repeating what he did last year. I just didn't realize how collectively they would think that. I knew there would be some people who would think, I've already done this last year, I'm not doing it again. But to see the majority of people just reject it outright was just and in original song, like it had two songs that could have been nominated, and they rejected both of them. And we know that they only wrote those songs to get Oscar nominations. That's the only reason. Every time that there's just a random new song in a movie musical adaptation, Les Mis did it, Chicago did it. Every single stage to screen movie musical has just often it's just in the credits, or it's just thrown in the movie somewhere. We know it's just we want to get an extra Oscar nomination, and it usually succeeds. Les Mis got nominated, Chicago got nominated.
but it's good business as well. It's good because you're
Yes.
It's part of the adapting.
Exactly.
And we did think that this would get, 3 or 4. Yeah, the song, and a lot of people have said that Ariana Grande is probably the only constant, that her performance was as good as the first, if a lot darker, less physical performance than the first one, which is what I loved about the first one was how physical she was. And the second one, she really turned on the melancholy and pulled it off. So I feel for her a lot more than I do Cynthia, and anyone else. I mean, but it's supporting, as I said, supporting categories have gone a bit mad this year. I'm going to pick. We'll do it in. We'll go back and forth. I want to pick another film, which is Resurrection, by Chinese film, which I think I know the reasons why these films didn't make it. This distributing wise, I know Janice picked it up for distributing, mostly online, and it's screenings wise, it's been a bit quiet. Not a lot of people have seen it. I know why, but this film, my big gang was like cinematography, music by M83, a band we all know. Art direction. Just this guy is amazing. I don't know if you've seen Kalihi Blues and can't remember his other film he made, the second film, but just an incredible filmmaker and just a visual treat. And this was at Cannes, and they gave him a special prize as well. Sort of made up make up a prize for sometimes, don't they? For well, let's give him this one because we don't know what else to give him. Juliette Binoche's been a bit funny, but yeah, that I was devastated not to see that in there because visually, I don't know if you've seen it, but
yeah.
I mean, just
I thought it would be in for cinematography at least, but yeah, it's just another case of just too many great international films and people don't know where to focus. And so in those situations, you need a distributor to really get it in front of people. And I get that's the problem, is that Janice is just not that kind of distributor. It's kind of like when I see Bleecker Street has picked up something, I'm like, oh God, like they just don't seem to have that ability, like to get the film in front of the right audiences in the right places. And I think that's unfortunately what happened with Resurrection.
Yeah, when we're Wicked, we know it was widely seen, so that is obviously the biggest surprise. It's probably the biggest.
Yeah.
Like, what do they call it? Like goose egg of the season. Resurrection, not much of a surprise, but I would have liked to have seen it. And I think it's not very competitive. Some of these categories, this would have been a really flashy. Amazing. What's your second choice for?
Well, a similar one in similar vein is No Other Choice, which was in my top 10 films of the year. I think it's one of his. I mean, he's had an incredible career, but this is up there for me. I cannot fault that film, not just the film itself, but like the editing, the cinematography, the acting. I thought it would be across the board nominated. I know acting would have been hard to break into because it was a really competitive category this year, but I guess that this was another sacrifice of Neon having too many contenders in Best International Feature. I don't know if they rejected it because they just went, well, we can't give you all 5 spots. That's just impossible. You can't have all 5 spots going to one distributor. I don't think voters kind of look at it that way, but I just think Neon certainly didn't give it the focus that it was giving its other contenders, and I think it suffered because of that. But just the fact that like it was never really in the conversation for editing, and some of the shots, the way that they're edited is just, I don't even know. I was watching it, I'm like, I actually cannot figure out how you've done this. And the same with the cinematography, the transitions, some of the shot that I legitimately was just baffled how those technical achievements were never really in the conversation this season. But there's not one in best international feature that I would like to cut to make room for it. I just wish there was a sixth spot so it could have just joined this group, because I would actually hate to sacrifice any of them to make room for it. They all deserve to be there for different reasons, but just the way that No Other Choice just was not in conversation this year I think it's one of those films people will find in 10, 15, 20 years and be like, hang on, how is this not nominated for a whole bunch of things?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's not, people have not said this, but I think there's maybe like a Park Chan-wook thing that the Academy just doesn't sit with them. And we know it's not a South Korea thing because we have a Best Picture from South Korea. But The Handmaiden, I believe it won the BAFTA. I might be wrong. Decision to Leave was like, I know a couple of films were the war film was a mighty film, but Decision to Leave was the best film of the year, and it was
winning things too. It was being nominated
Donkey
everywhere.
Film got in, didn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, I don't know why they have an aversion to him and his films. I don't understand. And I thought this would be the one to break it, because I don't like to compare it to Parasite, but it had shades of Parasite to it. Definitely. The dark comedy, the violence, the sort of tongue-in-cheekness of it all, the satire, everything, and the sort of social commentary. It felt like Parasite, but it's completely its own thing. And I thought, well, they embrace Parasite so heavily, why wouldn't they do that? And that's my only thought of like, well, they just didn't want to repeat themselves. But this no one would have looked at this as a repeat of Parasite. It would have just been like, this is another brilliant example of South Korean cinema that just didn't cut through this year. I can't fathom it.
Yeah, now Pandora critics, which I'm going to add to this year, we nominated the actress and the actor, and it won the editing prize. So I mean, at least we had showed some love for it. I mean, the actress was a surprise, I will say, but I mean, she was terrific in it, and I like the Parasite comparison. I think it's respectful, and it is different, but it is that kind of, well, if you like that, you should like this.
Exactly.
It's one of his most accessible. I can understand why The Handmaiden might have rubbed him the wrong way, and Old Boy they weren't ready for it in the 2000s. But I mean, what a filmography this guy's got, and he's the president at Cannes, isn't he? So I think the French Riviera are saying, "We love you. Come with us and watch our films." Let's see what happens. I'm going to pick a weird one. I think I would have liked to have seen this in score, which is Nine Inch Nails for a film which was terrible, Tron Ares, but one of the best soundtracks of the year. And I know why it didn't get in. I know why. They've won before, maybe because it was Nine Inch Nails. They didn't like this film. But I remember watching that. Even my 9-year-old son was like bored. And he likes cars and he likes lights. But brilliant soundtrack. One of the definite best. And it was shortlisted as well. So I was fingers crossed, but it just didn't make it in. And I know why. Again, I know why, like most of my choices, but I would have loved to have seen that in there,
I was surprised it didn't get in for visual effects as well. I think as dreadful as the film overall was, at least visually, you could watch it just as a screensaver and it would work really well. Like you could just put it. It was one of those movies that you think you'll see on TVs in department stores because it really shows off a TV's abilities and stuff like that. Those are the kind of films that I think should be in there for visual effects, because visually and audibly, it's a masterpiece. But if it's just the storyline, the acting, and everything else destroys that film. But to see it kind of be, I guess Disney probably weren't pushing it. I mean, that's the problem with Disney, is that they were so focused on Avatar. They were so focused on other films in the sort of Searchlight lineup that something like a Tron just didn't register for them. But yeah, you're right. I mean, being shortlisted, certainly it was on the radar. It was on the cusp, at least in some degree, but it just couldn't get over the line.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like you can watch it. Even some of the bits I loved about it was where I just came out of the narrative, if you can call it a narrative, and where Jared Leto's not talking, and it's just you enjoy the chase scene, and yeah,
Mm.
but yeah, exactly, yeah. But that's my number two. What's your like? What else have you got that's egregious?
Another one I loved was Sorry Baby, which I just think is a beautiful film. It's so well written, and for it to be someone's directorial debut was just incredible. I'm still confused how Ava Victor didn't win the DGA for first time feature. That was crazy to me, and I really thought that when Julia Roberts randomly gave Sorry Baby a shout out at the Golden Globes, I thought, okay, it's going. I at least thought it would get in for screenplay. I thought it would be one of those situations of just a solo screenplay nomination, which I kind of love. I just think it's kind of great when your screenplay is that strong. It's like, okay, you're not sort of part of the conversation in all these other major categories, but we cannot deny that this is one of the best written films of the year, so we're going to give it a nomination. And I really, really thought Ava Victor would do that. I don't know what happened. It got some Golden Globe noms. It's, as I said, the DGA, but I just think it just didn't have that support behind it for some reason. But I think for someone to take a topic so dark and serious like sexual assault and still find light in it and still be able to, it is, sort of oddly funny and oddly entertaining, but incredibly powerful. And to do that with your first script and your first feature is just astonishing. And my only hope is, okay, well, what's next? Her next one will kind of really get the attention it deserves, but for it to kind of fall over, I guess it's just a case of there was just too many other films this year and it just kind of got lost in the mix.
Yeah, and I agree. Watching it and even thinking about after like that, that tone she crafted is perfect balance between her acting, her writing, and her filmmaking. Just that's why after the screenplay. There's a scene where she goes to the doctor and she takes a friend with her, and it's really inappropriate. It's just one of the best written scenes of the year from any
Yeah,
film.
yeah,
That scene
yeah,
alone, because you're like, that's how people talk. That's how we
exactly.
should be talking to our doctors.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
just, yeah, she was possibly number six, would you say? Maybe Secret Agent,
yeah.
seven last, the furthest. Crazy. I mean, Blue
I
Moon
think,
got
but
in.
that what frustrated me the worst was something like Blue Moon, which I love Ethan Hawke's performance. I do enjoy the film overall, but I think its screenplay nomination was so from out of nowhere. But at the expense of Sorry Baby and even Secret Agent, that confused me to no end. That very, very few people saw that nomination coming, so that was particularly frustrating. If it had been nominated, if Sorry Baby had missed because something amazing else had been nominated, I probably wouldn't be so angry. But to see it miss in favor of that was just bizarre to me. You also could have thrown Weapons in there as well, and that would have been a great screenplay nominee. But Blue Moon was just a very, very odd choice at the expense of particularly Sorry Baby.
Yeah, shame. Well, speaking of Linklater, I'm gonna pick his other film, which Nouvelle Vague, which did weirdly well at the Globe nominations. Like, where it got into picture twice. I slightly prefer this one, but I'm a bit of a Godard geek, and when I was at college, when I was a youngster, and we made us watch those films, and I was like, what is this? This is like literally a new wave of cinema, but in the 90s. And he has his issues. He's a bit of a strange character, but I'm not sure if we would have liked this or not. But this film was like some cinematography choices were really good, but Zoe Deutsch, supporting actress, would have been a really interesting. It was never going to happen. I think it was mentioned at the beginning a little bit, just didn't have the legs to do it. But when it got the Golden Globes, I thought, oh. But yeah, I think Nouvelle Vague is one I'd like to mention. Great year for Linklater. I mean, that guy knows how to pay homage to the stuff he likes. I don't know if you've seen Wuthering Heights. We don't have to talk about it, but she's paid homage to a part of her life when she read this book, and this is the outcome. Linklater seems to nail it when there's part of cinema or something that he loves, or music or history.
Yeah.
So yeah, Zoe Deutsch, and she's an up and coming. She's in a lot of films, and she's still not getting that recognition. And she's
I love
brilliant in
her. Yeah, I
everything.
think she's phenomenal, and I think I thought this might be the sort of breakthrough performance, and I think in some ways it is, and I hope that it encourages someone to cast her in something great or something to consider her for something they weren't, and that sort of leads into that one role that really kind of she crosses over, because I think she's phenomenal and she's great in this film, and I think even technically it should have been in consideration for some of the technical categories of cinematography or editing or production design, costume design, but just kind of fell off. And I don't know if that's because it was a Netflix film, like they had other priorities. I just think it didn't. That's why when it got those Globe nominations, I thought, oh, this might encourage them now to give it a bit more focus, because they've been so focused on Jay Kelly and Frankenstein. And obviously once Jay Kelly wasn't happening, I thought maybe they would switch focus into this, but I think they just ultimately threw everything behind Frankenstein because they want to get those tech wins and the tech categories. And they were trying really hard with Jacob Elordi and even Del Toro with directing. And Netflix is one of those ones that can't seem to do what Warner Brothers has done, is that Netflix can only focus on one film a season. They cannot seem to juggle multiple films for some strange reason.
It's crazy though, because with Frankenstein, especially if the categories would have been slightly different, would have had a header in there or an ugly stepsister or something else. It probably would have won these two without any campaigning anyway. You make Jacob Elordi into, all right, he's still a sexy man with all this makeup on him, but yeah, I mean,
it sells itself kind of thing. I think once we saw, I remember seeing the first stills. I think it was a Vanity Fair article for Frankenstein. It was the first look we got at it, and immediately it was like, okay, that's winning costume design, that's winning production design. The race was already basically over before the film had even been seen. So I think for them to put so much focus in it when they have other contenders that really need time and attention and money behind them, it's frustrating, because they do this every year. I can't imagine what Netflix's budget is, but it's bigger than anybody else's for sure. But they always seem to put it behind the wrong film. Like it drives me crazy every year.
Yeah, you go back to The Irishman, these films that they could, and that didn't win anything, did it?
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, over to you. Two more each. I've got two more here, quick ones. We'll wrap it up. But what else do you have that you wish we should have made it, Doug?
My second last one would be Testament of Anne Lee, which I think once we heard that Searchlight had picked it up, I was like, okay, great. Like it's in good hands. I'm not going to blame them, because I think their release strategy with it was wrong. I think they should have had it out pre-Christmas. They really should have got the ball started a lot earlier than they did. I think at the time they were still too focused on Rental Family. I think they thought that was probably its awards contender, and they were sort of waiting to see what would happen with Testament of Anne Lee. But it got such a strong response from the festival season that everyone that I know that saw it certainly didn't. Even if you didn't love it as a film overall, you admired it. You admired its technical achievements, and you couldn't deny Amanda Seyfried's performance was easily one of the best of the year. And I know the Best Actress category, as it is every year, is too full, and it was really hard. But to see someone like Kate Hudson get in over Amanda Seyfried will bug me for the rest of my life. I love Kate Hudson. I actually really did enjoy Song Sung Blue more than I thought I would. But if we're talking about sort of musically minded performances, there is no comparison. What Amanda does is on another level compared to what Kate Hudson is doing. And I just don't know what happened. I think the rollout and everything just was mishandled. And for someone like Searchlight to botch that is not something I ever thought would happen. They're usually so great at handling awards contenders. They know how to do it. They know what they're doing. They did so well with so many films in the past. So I can't understand what happened to it. I just think it just fell off the radar after everything was moving in the right direction. Particularly, it was up for sale after TIFF, and knowing that Searchlight had purchased it, I thought, well, this is going to be, especially coming from someone involved with the Brutalist. It was like, well, it can kind of ride a very, very similar wave to what that did. Two very, very different films, obviously. But you know, if the Brutalist did the same thing, it came into festival season without a distributor. It got purchased, it then got pushed, and then it, you know, got a whole bunch of nominations. I thought the exact same thing would happen here, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. As I mentioned, the costume and art direction could have easily got in. She could have got in. It could,
Yeah,
there was a song, and
a
it was
song. Yeah,
and it was dying for a long time. Even everybody still wanted to predict it. And it's a film that's really
yeah,
distracting, and I mean this in a positive way. It's not for everyone, but it is distracting in that you watch it and you go, "Well, I don't really know what that was about," but I loved the
no,
technical aspects of it. I'll probably vote for it.
yeah,
I loved hearing it,
yeah.
and yeah, it's one of those mysteries. It's probably. I thought it was number 6 or 7 in a lot of categories, but I'm really not even sure if it was that high.
No. So I think it really didn't appear on the shortlist for so many of those categories. I'm like, for it to not even be shortlisted was like, what are we doing here? Like, this is a period musical with these costumes and sets, and how can we not even shortlist it for just the technical achievements? Was just very, very strange to me. I don't know if that's Searchlight's fault or it just didn't connect for whatever reason, but it seemed to be connecting everywhere else, and it just
Yeah,
couldn't get over the line.
I think Searchlight plays a part because I think the film, social media wise, was quite active. I thought it was everywhere, but I wasn't seeing Amanda. Saw a couple, but I wasn't seeing the filmmakers show up. Like
Mm,
Jacob Elordi
mm,
was showing up with things.
mm,
That makes a big difference. You didn't
exactly.
ask me about socials, so if it's just based on socials and credibility of who she is to last year's Oscar winner, you know, but it's really strange. I just think you have to go out and talk to people, and I just don't think that was happening.
I don't know if that's, I'm not blaming Amanda Seyfried. I don't know if that's because, you know, The Housemaid was obviously an
Yeah,
early December release, and that took up a huge amount of her time, and it did very, very well. So obviously it paid off, and I think she was one of the exec producers. So obviously she had sort of a vested interest in that film doing well.
yeah.
But I don't know if that's why they kind of delayed Testament of Anne-Lee, because they knew that she had sort of other priorities. But if that's the case, then maybe hold it to next award season. There's no reason that you had to put it out this year. Like it could have, you could have put it in the back pocket and said, okay, we've got too much going on this year. Amanda isn't available to really do a proper Oscar campaign. Let's just hold it until next season, which films have done in the past. You know, I can think of like Sound of Metal, when Amazon purchased that at TIFF, and then they held it to the following season. Riz gets nominated. It won film editing. You know, got
Sound,
nominated for
yeah.
sound. So there's no reason that you actually have to put it out immediately. It could have kind of taken a seat back, and then you could have played it at some more festivals next year and kind of reinvigorated it 12 months later.
It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be more than Wicked. I think it's gonna be the film that people has a following, large
Yeah.
cult following, but it's gonna have a large following, and they're not gonna be bothered eventually about the 0 Oscar nominations. But it's always gonna
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
following. So, um, I'm gonna touch on what I would argue is my favorite film of the year, not to receive any Oscar nominations, and that's a German film called Sound of Falling, which, in my own personal ballot, it would have got about 12. But for cinematography, I believe it was shortlisted. International film, again, we've covered this. I know why it was probably 6 or 7. I know why it didn't get in, but distributors, again, if you're not Neon, I mean, next year they might have 6. They might be competing with themselves, unless you count something like Alpha, which we had no chance. But yeah, um, this one just majestic to look at, really, and would have been a great ensemble casting thing as well. She's up and coming. There's so many. It could have had a really nice run for breakthrough and casting, and the cinematography was astonishing as well. But
Mm,
again, these are
mm.
choices that I've picked. Yours are more. I don't get it. What happened? Mine are more. Look, I know why they weren't nominated, but I was still praying for this one and they would get in. Possibly cinematography. It was a long shot. It didn't. But absolutely, no film looks like that this year. I assume you've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I hate using, as I said before, the word accessible. It isn't as accessible as some of these other international contenders, and
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. And it again, the international feature category is just too good this year. There are several others that could have made it in as well. every year now, it's like we can kind of give maybe 2 or 3 kind of bigger nominations and Best Picture and that kind of stuff, but everything else is just you're competing for one of those 5 spots, and if you can't get in there, then that's it. You just get nothing. So
yeah, it would have been lovely. I get I get what you mean, because it is like watching a bit of like a fever dream. And people sometimes need a bit of focus and attention and
yeah,
what have you. I
yeah,
get that, but yeah, I was swept away by it. I loved it, and I was promoting it quite heavily on socials. Not that I can do it by myself, but I need the help of Neon or someone to pick it
yeah.
up. So yeah, so that one. I'll come to my last one in a minute. I think it's gonna be pretty obvious given my background. But what's your final omission for this year's season, Doug?
So my final one, I mean, this is on the flip side of Testament and Lee. They did do what I said they should have done in the Life of Chuck, that Neon purchased it from after it won People's Choice at TIFF the previous year, and they held on to it, which I think was a mistake. Whereas I know I said that Testament of Anne Lee, they could have held on to it. I think in this situation, when you win the People's Choice Award, you have to ride that into award season immediately. You cannot hold it for I don't know why they held it as a summer release. I think that was a mistake. It's not a summer film. A film like that gets lost in the summer blockbuster season. But the decision to try and run it for the following award season, by the time it came around, it was just forgotten about. It was just, especially for people who had seen it at TIFF or had seen it at some of the other festivals 12 months earlier, it just wasn't on anyone's radar anymore. And it kind of broke that curse of, well, the People's Choice at TIFF winner has gone on to a Best Picture nomination for like 20 years or something. It always was a great start to your campaign, but it's not a great start to your campaign 12 months later. Like it doesn't work that way. People's Choice has to then go immediately into that award season. I think if Life of Chuck had been in the previous award season, it still would have been part of the conversation. But again, this year Neon had too much else going on. And I think once it flopped at the box office in June, I don't even remember seeing them attempt to push it for award season this year. It just didn't happen, but it should have. It's a beautiful film. Tom Hiddleston is great in it. It's a great script. Mark Hamill's a great supporting performance, very uplifting, very emotional. It seems like the kind of film, maybe that's the problem, is that it's from Oscars of the past, and 20 years ago it would have been nominated for everything. Maybe it just feels a little too schmaltzy, a little too sentimental. But I loved that film so much, and I can see why it won People's Choice. And had it been part of this award season a bit more heavily, I don't know where it would have kind of slotted in, but I still think it could have at least got a couple of nominations if Neon had have probably run the campaign properly and done sort of the timeline a little bit better.
Yeah, just to touch on a couple of your points, that was a strange one. I remember that happening. We were already talking about what we're talking about now, but back then, weren't we? Like 16 months ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I just think, like, how do you feel this film would have competed last year? Because I don't think that schmaltzy thing you mentioned is obviously TIFF responded to it, but I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry, producers that responded to it, and it's asked me, "Have you seen it? Have you seen it?" Even like during the festival, like last year, like they were still asking me about Life of Chuck. So it could have had some legs if it had that momentum from TIFF. Do you think it could have competed last year? I mean, Mark Hamill, I know, was a supporting actor. People were talking about him, and just I think people wanted that kind of that feel good cinema, didn't they?
I think in those sort of early predictions, the people were doing them straight after film festivals is they were putting it in all their predictions, because it was like not only just the People's Choice stat is usually enough to go, okay, well, this is an awards contender, because it always is an awards contender, like Hamnet this year. But I think there were multiple categories where there was space for it. That's why I don't understand Neon going, well, this award season is not right for it, we're going to move it to next year. I think Mark Hamill absolutely could have been in there. Do I think it could have defeated Honora? No, but it certainly still could have competed. I think, a screenplay nomination for Mike Flanagan, just that in itself would have been a no-brainer. I thought that they would maybe try and at least push him this season. If the film wasn't going to happen, if it wasn't going to be a bigger contender, to at least try and get it a solo screenplay nomination, because Mike Flanagan is so well respected and so beloved in the industry as a writer. So
Could
I
like a
think there
past
would have been
lives or a
space
train
for it.
dreams scenario. You know, it
Yeah,
gets a couple,
yeah.
gets recognised rightly so, and
Exactly. Yeah. But I think Neon just took the focus off it entirely. Once it was labeled a box office flop, they were like, okay, we're just retreating from this film entirely. We're going to focus on sentimental value in our other sort of international contenders and just forget that Life of Chuck ever happened, which is weird given how much money they paid for the rights to it out of TIFF, but
it
clearly it
is
didn't
sad.
work out how they wanted.
So when I got that Neon book, as much as we knew it was going to be on there, it felt like an
Yeah.
afterthought. But also, you're
Yeah.
turning the pages
Yeah.
and you're thinking it's got to compete with this one, this one, this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
It
was
doesn't
too
matter what
much.
language you speak. It was way down the
No.
pecking
No.
order. Sadly, the momentum had
I was
shifted.
shocked it was in the Neon book. I thought I actually thought it was just going to be
I
removed
thought it was a
completely on
mistake.
that.
I thought, have I gone back in
Yeah,
time?
yeah. Like that's right. Oh yeah.
Um, I'm going to mention my last one, which is also a Cannes film from a filmmaker who generally wins at Cannes. Lynn Ramsey, her film, which I understand again, I'm going to say it every single choice why this didn't get in. This was very divisive, this film, but Jennifer Lawrence,
Mm,
who was
mm,
touted to win at Cannes, and had she won Best Actress at
mm.
Cannes, it might have been a different story, but she didn't. The film just got pretty much ejected. It's got a few fans. It could have got some other things, cinematography perhaps, but I think Jennifer Lawrence, in our Pandora film critics, I won't reveal the number of votes, but she was winning for a long time with our voters, which
Wow.
I thought was very thrilling, given how
Mm,
Jessie steamrolled the entire season.
mm.
She didn't win in the end, obviously, but that performance when you think she won for Silver Linings Playbook and then she does this, she's astonishing in it, and especially the fact that she came out and then watched one battle after another, and she was like, "That's my favorite film ever." And I've just had a baby and I'm a mother now, and the narrative was there, almost a sort of mini
Yeah.
comeback as well. But
Mm,
probably my favorite female performance of the year. No offense, Jessie Buckley. Just watching her in that film was like electricity.
mm.
I get the film's not great. It's not one of Ramsey's best, but yeah, that would have been a lovely fifth slot for best actress for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to keep shitting on Kate Hudson, but again, it's like Kate Hudson instead of Jennifer Lawrence. It's one of those things that people will look back and be like, how was Jennifer not nominated for this performance? Like I don't know if it's the case of she's been nominated and she's won before, and it's just like, well, we'd rather. But then, Kate Hudson's been nominated before. This isn't. If that was the case, you would have expected to see Chase Infinity get in of a newcomer over someone who's been here before. But instead, it was like, why are we giving, as much as this also was kind of a comeback for Kate Hudson, did she really need that nomination? Did it really need to be
Strange
there?
one.
And then you look
Yeah.
at what Jennifer does in that movie, and it's just incredible. And again, it's that accessibility problem. I think Lynn Ramsey movies are not the most accessible, and this one in particular is quite. It's a tough watch, and for some reason that often works, particularly against actresses. I think people are more willing to do that with actors, but with actresses, it's like, no, this is not what I was expecting. This is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jennifer was like campaigning particularly hard. Not that she should have to, but I don't think she was really
It never took off, did
desperate
it?
to be
The
nominated.
buzz.
No,
I think she needed to
and
win
that's fine.
that can prize, might have done it,
Yeah,
but again,
yeah,
nobody. Yeah, she's great at it, but it never picked up any Oscar buzz. It never became a narrative of any sort, really. Sadly,
no.
but she wins my Oscar anyway. But I still think she should have won for lots of other things. But even like going back to American Hustle, which I didn't really like that film. I thought she was amazing in that, and everyone was like, "She's miscast.
Yeah.
She's too young." I was like, "Yeah, but she's proved that she can do this and." Talented woman. But yeah, so that's my final one. In case you didn't guess by my background, um, let's wrap it up, Doug. I mean, it's been like one of the best award seasons. Just to summarise, and I think the lack of mudslingers I've loved as well. Even that apparently Jessie Buckley doesn't like cats and Timothy Chalamet doesn't like ballet. It's ludicrous at this stage. Like you say, whichever film wins, and I'm fairly certain it's going to be 5 or 6 each on the night. I think it's going to be fairly accidentally evenly spread.
Mm,
Before we go, any surprises you're hoping for? I'm hoping for Ugly Stepsister in makeup and the voice of Henry
mm.
Jarb to take. the international feature film acting prize, I don't care. But is there any surprises that would please your heart, not your head?
I'm really conflicted with cinematography because I would love for a female to finally win that category after 98 years. But I'm so obsessed with the cinematography of Train Dreams. I think that is some of the most exceptional cinematography I've ever seen. I would love to see that win. I'm so conflicted in that category. I want both of them. I want it to be a tie, and Sinners and Train Dreams to both win. I'm just looking forward to the night. I think last year there were very few categories where we were still kind of open-ended leading into the night. So it's really great that there are and top-end categories too. You know, actor, even picture is still open. Both supporting categories are wide open. The shorts this year are exceptional. If you can watch them, do, because they've picked 15 phenomenal short films. I would be happy for pretty much any of them to win all of those categories. So I'm just really looking forward to it being a fun night. And I think it's that there's not a lot of anger this year around whoever wins anything. I think they could pick from most of the categories. There's not going to be a winner that's going to piss people off like some of the winners certainly did last year. So I think it's going to be a great, when we look back on this season and this Oscars, it's definitely one of the better ones in a long time.
Yeah. I'm just going to say thank you for everything you do again, just publicly. And also the shorts thing you got, I've sent you, but you got a very nice email to say that it was one of the most accessible, shorts reviews that if they felt like they'd watched this film. I'm going to link it in the, I'll do the whole, I'll link it in the bio thing. But certainly people have to read it because it's one of the best things you've written. And you do write some great stuff at the end of I think a couple of years ago you wrote an amazing Good, Bad and Ugly thing, and I think you got similar praise for that. You think you've read it all, you think you think you've lived it, and then you'll give a perspective and an argument to certain political sides of things. And so, keep up the great work. I'm honoured to have you on the Filmotomy team, and I hope you sleep well after next Monday. Just tell us tell everybody where we can find you as well.
So obviously, in this last week now, it's final predictions. So there'll be all those pieces coming out this week on filmotomy.com for each category of getting down to the final predictions and what should win and what could possibly still upset, and then all predictions in all 24 categories at the end of that. So that's all on filmotomy.com this week. And then just my regular reviews are on thejamreport.com. And you can follow me on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's Doug Jam.
Superb. Are you on Instagram as well? A little bit.
Yes, same username on Instagram as well.
Superb. Well, thank you very much. You can find me obviously at Filmotomy everywhere. I think it's robin.wright at LinkedIn. But I think Instagram seems to be the place to be at the minute. It's where a lot of the film publicity is happening, and it's where I like to live, and it's a very nice, calming place. Not a lot of trolls on there, a lot of X has been cleaned up, I will say, but it's a bit of a desert at the minute. It's a bit barren. Yeah, thank you, Doug. Really appreciated. I'll leave you to get on with the rest of your day, but a week to go, and hopefully we can chat again next week, last minute.
Yeah. Once it's all over. And then start again in 3 months.
You can tuck yourself under all those leaves and hibernate like a squirrel.
Yes, yeah.
Really, truly, thank you for your hard work and thank you for speaking to me. We'll speak again soon.
No, thank you. All right, I'll talk to you soon.